Okay, we're going to start working out her hand and the item on there. Now, I did a couple tests, and I don't think it's going to work what I had in mind. Because, one, the bat is too close to the head, and I think the amount of weight of putting a parasol in her hand, and that's kind of bent and burnt up, I think would cause too much stress with this. And this could probably break off, or it could pop out, and I don't think it's going to work. I think if her hand and arm was positioned differently and then it was cut off here, maybe something would work a little bit better, but I don't like that idea. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to do a change of hand option. And we're going to leave this option with the bat, and I'm going to put spikes on it. I think that'll look pretty cool. Unless I decide to change that. I'm not really sure yet. Maybe I could find like a Mario hat or something and leave it in this hand. I'm not really sure. But this hand kind of like is an afterthought at the moment. I'm not really thinking about that too much. I have this hand from another statue, and it's in my box of parts, and I like the idea of the hand being like in this position. So I have this stuff called figure art. It's to Shinami Effects or something. It's like all these little pieces. You can get these for action figures. So you can see I have all this like, yellow flame stuff here. They have it in blue flame. I think they have it in purple. They have it in like the regular flame. And I used this for a bunch of customs in the past because a friend told me about this stuff. So this one right here is going to be a great option for the hand. So we're not going to utilize these at the moment. We're going to utilize this piece here. The reason why I think it would look cool is because I saw a bunch of pictures online where she had flames in her hand. So because her hand is like this, and I guess she does spit fire from her mouth as well, but I also saw people like having flames in her hands or something. So it's kind of like maybe she spit into her hand, or maybe she has a fireball she's going to throw. I don't know. It's kind of like, I think it'll be a little bit of a cool effect with a change of hand and fire in the hand. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to cut up these pieces and sort of create something that could go in the hand after I paint it up. Because if I put it in now and then I try to paint it up, it'll be a nightmare. So if I can have something where the hand is removable with a magnet, and then at the end I could just install these pieces, so I could grab some red Aves, I could put like red Aves into the hand, and then I can install the clear pieces into it, so the fireball looks a little bit solid, but the clear stuff that's coming out is a little bit more translucent. And it's kind of hidden anyway, so that'll work out pretty cool. So this way you have a change of hand option. You have one hand that's going to be like, you don't take away from the figure too much, and then you have another hand where it's kind of like a bat with spikes, or if I change something in this hand. So things might evolve as I go, but I have to kind of go with the whole custom flow where things can work, things can't work. Sculpting from scratch and planning it out from the get-go, and then either doing a 3D sculpt or traditional, you could work it all out. But I'm working with polystone resin, and to break this arm and re-sculpt all this stuff, it's a hell of a lot more work, and it might not work or look correct too when I'm done. So we don't want to go that route. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to grab some Magic Sculpt. We'll mix up some Magic Sculpt. We'll start working on a basic key here system. And then after I get that key done, we can install that hand onto that key, and then we could go from there. So I'm thinking the hand might look a little something like this. I mean, I could go downwards. I can't really go upwards because it'll look weird. It's not positioned. So I think more like she's kind of like has it in her hand like this, or something. I don't know. That's kind of where I'm going with down this. So I think that'll be kind of a cool option. And this way you can focus on the figure more than what's in her hand. Okay guys, so we're going to make a copy of the key of this hand for this hand. I was going to use Magic Sculpt for making the key, but what I was doing, it wasn't working out too well. There was too many errors, so I figured, it's better for me to just make a mold, a crappy mold of this hand here, of just the bottom of the key, and then we can utilize a resin copy onto this hand here. So this is easy mold stuff. You can probably get this at like Michael's, AC Moore, hobby stores. You can order it on eBay from other companies, might call Nita Mold, stuff like that. So you just mix A and B together in equal amounts, and then you push it into like a cup, or you push it around an item, let it cure up for like 15 minutes, and then you pop it off and you got a mold of your item. So you can use this for like if you're making copies of, say, spikes. Maybe you made a pouch and you want to put 5 pouches around a belt. This is kind of cool stuff to make your life easy. Now I do know other people in the hobby, they use like silicone caulking you get like at Home Depot, and you can make like throwaway molds for some stuff. I like getting this stuff only because this can handle the heat of the, of the resin a little bit better. Plus, you can actually heat these up pretty well, and when you pour in the resin, it'll cure a little bit faster. Whereas some of the silicone stuff might kind of like warp a little bit if you don't have really thick. So I'm going to mix this up. We'll put it in the cup. We'll push the hand in like so. Let that cure up. And then after that's done, we can actually heat it up with like a blow dryer or put it in front of a heater. Get it warmed up and then pour in resin and get that heated up. And then it'll cure a lot faster because small resin amounts take a little bit of time to cure. Where if you have it all heated up and warm, it'll cure a lot faster and you won't run into that like stretchy stuff that doesn't really cure with resin. Alright, it's been about 20 minutes and this is pretty much cured, so you just pop that out and you basically have a key system in there. So looking in the inside, we're not seeing really any major air bubbles and it looked like it worked out pretty good. So the next step is we have to set up the resin. I gotta pretty much get some stuff on the floor. I gotta get the resin kind of heated up. We'll kind of go over all that. And then we'll pour in the resin, let it cure up, and then we'll basically have a nice clean key. Okay, so we're going to mix up this resin to get this key made up. So we have our Smooth On Smooth Cast 300. The 300 cures really fast. The 305 takes a little bit longer. And then the more you go up, the longer it takes to cure. I like the 300 because you can mix it, pour it in like 5 minutes. In 10 minutes, it's like fully cured and you're ready to go. So I got to shake up these two bottles because they've been sitting a while. And then I'll put A into this cup here. I don't need to put a little bit, but not very much. The only problem is I find that you got to mix it very well to make something that small. You can't just put a couple drops in and hopefully it's going to cure because you can't really get it mixed up too well. And then we'll put the B into this cup. But we'll also put a little bit of a black dye drop into there. So just sort of the resin, when it cures, it turns to a gray instead of a pure white. And then we'll put these 2 cups plus the mold in front of the heater for about, I don't know, a good 15 minutes or so. Get it really nice and warm. So this way when we mix everything together, it's really warm and hot and it'll cure better. But I also have some baby powder over here that I'll put into the mold, just kind of give it a dusting. So this way it kind of doesn't like, it cures and you can pop it out a little bit easier instead of using mold release. So I might need to make 2 copies, only because sometimes when you make your first one, there might be residues in the mold from mixing them together that cause a little reaction. But then usually by the second time, everything's ready to go. So let me get all this stuff mixed up, and then when we're ready to pour it in, we'll show you how it all works out. Alright, so it's been about 15 minutes, and basically what we could do is try to pop this out. Now, of course, it was easier to pop it out. We had more of a grab with the other part, so... Now, you can pop this out of here, which makes life a little easier. Now, we don't really have to worry too much about the top part of this, so what we can do is just kind of grab it, and... So it's not soft, it's not really hitting anything. Because if it doesn't cure correctly, it'll kind of like be like putty, but this cured up pretty well. Now it looks like there was a little bit of an air bubble right here. If we look at the piece, so that just means we have to just sand it down a little bit. But you can see we pretty much got a copy of it. So what I'll have to do is just basically sand down to about there, and then we can pretty much kind of attach the hand. So I just got to kind of clean up the key a little bit here and there on the sides. We'll have to re-drill a hole in there and add a magnet. And then we'll be ready to go. And on the wrist and the statue and everything, and it's working out pretty cool. Now what I did was the key piece that was in there, I pretty much grinded it down. And then what I did was I Dremeled out a hole in there and I put in a magnet. Now the magnet looks like it's going to pop out, but it's not. I put in aves. And I have to just kind of seam around the aves. Because what I discovered was... this magnet in this hand is not actually touching magnet to magnet, and that happens with a lot of factory stuff. You know, when they're producing like hundreds or thousands of a statue and they're throwing magnets in there, they're not making sure every magnet touches. They just, you know, if they put the hand in and it's not falling out, then it's ready to go and they just go to paintwork. So that's kind of like what factories do. So with this one, I just wanted to make sure that the magnet was touching magnet. So we're pretty much lined up and everything's ready to go. And then after that was set up, the next day I pretty much attached the hand to the wrist. And you can kind of see it's a little bit messy looking because it's just like Aves Fix-It sculpt that I was working on with some black Aves. I just mixed them together and I put that on. So that worked out pretty cool. But then today, when I went in the garage, I just went to quickly sand down. I didn't need to heat up the garage. And literally it was so cold in there that this finger just broke off with just a push. It might have been cracked already, but I just glued it back on. I did some A's work, so we're ready to go. So I'm just going to let this kind of set up for the night. I'm going to throw a little bit of A's on that piece over there. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to start planning out the base. Now, I'm just waiting for it to come into the mail. My friend is sending me something that I had etched out, and we're going to utilize that for the base. I'm going to keep this base because I like the size of this base. I like the roundness and everything. I was going to make a generic base, circle base, but what it was going to do is it was just going to be about the same size, and I just kind of like this one, and this works out pretty good. We're just going to fix the key on it, though, when we do it. So once I get those etched wood pieces in the mail, we'll start focusing on the base, and we'll do something really cool with the feet on the base. It should come together pretty cool. Alright, so what I did is I cut up a bunch of these pieces. I got to just sort of kind of clean them up and scrape it out. It's actually kind of good that it's freezing in the garage today because of the weather, this cold front we're getting. Because melting this stuff, this plastic stuff, like sanding it down and grinding it with tools in the summertime, it just liquefies and it stinks and it goes crazy. But being so cold in the garage, I was actually able to use my Dremel tool and cut it up pretty well. So what I did is I cut out 3 pieces. This piece right here is going to go into the hand like so. This is after we painted up. So we'll have that piece there. This piece is going to kind of connect over here, like so. And then this piece will connect underneath there, so it's going to look like a flaming type hand. And what we'll do is we'll kind of scroll up a little bit. Up here. Just to give you guys a better idea what it's going to look like. So I figure when we paint it, and then what I do is I sculpt some of the red A's in there. You know, we'll have the flame hand like so. I got to kind of hold it and show you guys. So that's going to be up there. And then this piece will be under here like so. So it's going to look like a flaming type hand thing. So that's kind of what we're going at. Now, if anyone's wondering why don't you just sculpt in clear resin, you can't sculpt in clear. There's nothing to sculpt in clear out there that'll get you this type of look or to able to sculpt that. What most people do is they'll sculpt this in clay and then we'll make a mold and then they'll cast it up in clear resin. And that gets very, very expensive. The mold, like even just a trial mold kit that's like, you know, maybe about this much mold. You're looking at about $40 or so, and then the clear resin, a small thing of clear resin, crystal clear is probably about the same price. Then you have to have super hot weather or some kind of hot box to make the stuff cure, and clear resin takes about 24 hours to cure. So it gets very expensive. It's very time consuming. It's you got to make the molds. You got to do all that stuff. You need a pressure pot, and I just don't have all that equipment or space to do it. Only in the summertime I could. So this is kind of what we do when you customize a statue. You find pieces from other items and you create something out of that. So that's kind of what we're going at. So we got the flames all set up. Basically next, like I said, we'll pretty much clean that up. We'll get these set up. So this way they're nice and clean. I'll prime up this hand, get this all set up. And then hopefully once I get the stuff in the mail, we can start working on the base. Okay guys, we're going to start working on the base now, and what I wanted to do was a throwback to the Super Mario Brothers game when Bowser's in the dungeon and there's the white bricks, the white grayish bricks all over the place. So I wanted to do that for the bottom of this base. Now, we're going to keep the oval base, but we're going to do a brick pattern underneath of it, and the idea is I want the brick pattern to actually crack up, like she stomped and it's all broken around her feet. Or we might do one of two ways where it kind of breaks up around her, like upwards, or we might just crack it like it's just splitting. I'm not sure yet how far I want to go with it yet, but it was just easier to get a pattern made up. So my friend in Canada goes by MetaJohn. I'll throw his email in the description if anyone ever wants to do this for one of their own projects. He actually has an etching machine where he can actually etch out stuff on wood, resin. I think he's done marble. He's done plastics, I think, too. So if you have something like an Illustrator or a picture or a line drawing and you wanted something etched out, he can do it for you. So what I did was I took a Illustrator pattern I made up of brick and I sent it to him and I said make sure that the lines are raised up but the bricks themselves are pushed down. So this way I can roll out a thin sheet of freeform air from Smooth On. I can press this onto it and I can let that cure overnight, and then the next day I'll have a sheet of bricks that I can actually break and crack the way I want to and start attaching them to the base. So it's going to be a little bit tricky to explain it now, but when you see it in motion you'll understand a little bit better. But he's done a lot of other stuff for me too. Like he's actually could do like cool nameplates. Now these are two for friend of mine that I know that's having me do some work. He sent these to me for a future project. So you can have stuff like this made too. So like say you have like a team of anime characters or X-Men characters or even like maybe Young Justice or Teen Titans, you can have a nameplate made up and you can put it in front of your characters, which is kind of cool. So one extra thing I asked him to do for me is I found a Super Mario font online, and what I did is I did a Bowsette nameplate. I made it up in Illustrator, and I asked him to etch this for me too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab like a piece of wood or resin and like a triangle, and then what we can do is at the end of the project you can kind of just leave it in the front of the statue like that, or you can leave it down there, or I can attach it. I'm not really sure yet. I don't think I really want to attach it. I think maybe just kind of like leaving it in the front would be kind of cool. But we'll see what happens. I haven't gotten that far yet, but I figured let me just get a nameplate made up. It would be a little extra piece. So, with that being said, I'm going to get set up now. We're going to roll out freeform air instead of A's because A's is pretty expensive. I got a lot of the freeform air and make it look better with the bricks anyway. We're going to roll that out. We're going to do our pattern. We'll let it cure up, and then we're going to start plugging away and getting this base on. So we're pretty much all set up. So what I have here is an old drawing board from art school, one of my cleaner ones that doesn't have a lot of scratches on it. So I just taped down some wax paper. You don't want to mix this stuff onto your board. It's better to use wax paper for everything. So what I'm going to do is I'll use my baby powder on the wax paper first. We're going to mix up this stuff. It's called Smooth On Freeform Air. Now this stuff is just like working with Aves or Magic Sculpt. You got to mix A and B together in equal amounts, and you get to sculpt with it. Now this stuff is a little bit different because it's like lightweight, and when you mush it in your hand, it feels like a marshmallow. That's kind of what it feels like. But when it cures very hard. It's really cool stuff. But the difference between this and Aves and Magic Sculpt is the thicker this is when mixed together, the faster and hotter it cures. Like so if you mix, like if say you were sculpting something like a baseball like that big, the inside with the chemical reaction is going to get hot and it's going to cure a lot faster. But when we roll this out thin, it's not going to cure and get hot as fast, so it's going to take a little bit longer. But by tomorrow, the sheet of the pattern is going to be cured up and really sturdy. But this stuff seems to be able to cut a little bit easier and break it a little bit easier than Magic Sculpt or Aves does when it's cured up. So it's really kind of a little bit of a good for bases and stuff like this. So I got my rubber gloves only because the stuff's got some like chemicals in there. We got some water just to help mix it up because when you mix this stuff up, it sort of breaks up in your hand. So if you have some water, it kind of makes it a little bit more like clayish-like. We got the baby powder, we got a rolling pin, and then we got our pattern. So what I'm going to do right now is off camera. I'm just going to mix it up because it's very boring just to sit there and mix it up. I got to make sure I have enough that goes around the pattern and roll it out, because it's almost like if you're baking like a pie and you're making a pie crust. It's like the same process. You mix up your dough, you lay it on your counter, and you roll it out to where you need it, and then you can put it in the pan. Except once we roll it out, we just take our pattern and we press our pattern on. So the key thing is make sure you have baby powder down here, and then you make sure you have baby powder on top when you do your pressing of the pattern. And then after that, once it's cured up overnight, we'll come back tomorrow and hopefully we can start sculpting the base. So let's get this mixed up, and then we'll come back once I'm starting rolling it out, and we'll do the pressing on the camera and everything and go from there. Alright, so we got our pattern on there, and it worked out exactly how I wanted it to. It may look a little bit messy only because of the baby powder all over the place, but that's okay. I went a little bit extra with the baby powder because this stuff sorta does, it doesn't really bond like crazy, but it does get a little bit tacky because of the chemical reaction. So I wanted just to make sure that there's enough baby powder so it's not sticking. Now I did go over the wax paper a little bit, but I don't think it's going to ruin anything. What I'm going to try to do right now, before this starts curing up, is I might cut off the edges around the square with either an X-Acto blade or kind of use like an edge of a ruler and kind of just cut it. So what I might just do is something like this, is just take my ruler and just kind of, you know, cut off the edges like so, and just do that on each side and let it cure. So yeah, it's got a good pattern on there, and it's going to make life a lot easier to kind of do my base and everything. So that's pretty much where we're at right now. I'm going to get cleaned up and just let this cure overnight, and hopefully tomorrow we'll have a nice sheet of bricks that we can start breaking up and set underneath her. Alright, it's the next day, and this piece is all cured up and it's ready to go. This little piece broke off of here, but that doesn't really matter. I do need to score up the bottom of this and also get a lot of this wax paper that's kind of stuck down here off still. But once I kind of score up the thing, I don't need to smooth this out, I need to score it, because we're going to also score the top of this base too with some just rough sandpaper. So this way when I use Aves here and Aves here, and I put these pieces on, it's going to bond to the base better. If you try to do smooth to smooth, it really doesn't bond as well. So the other thing too is what I did is I just did an outline tracing of the bottom of the base around here, so I can actually Dremel around this piece here just to take all this off. And then it'll make life a little bit easier to put this on. Now the other thing too is it's not at the very edge of this oval. We have a little bit of a gap. But when I break up this stuff and I sort of split it a little bit, it's going to come out to the edge. And then once I attach it all, then I could just do some sanding work around here and just kind of smooth out the edge around the top of the oval. And then we'll have a nice you know, brick base for the bottom of the figure. Now one of the other things too is right here for her foot. Well, wherever I kind of like set this up and stuff, what we'll do is we'll also try to plan out the feet, and we're gonna have to make like another key system, or you know, where I think this will be fine. But the only thing is, I'm just a little bit concerned if this rod doesn't actually bend and come up the foot. So if I try to Dremel this out and this doesn't pop out, then we're going to run into problems. So I think what I might do is we might keep this key system since it's fine, but we also might throw a little bit of a magnet under here, so this way when you put her into the base, there will be like a little bit of a setup for this foot and a setup for this foot, and then it'll stay in there instead of twisting. So that's kind of where we're at with that. So I'll get in the garage now, we'll get this chopped up, and we'll come back and start attaching it. Okay, so this is where we're at right now. So what I did is I sort of cut this and I split this like so. Now you could just go like, you know, you could just split the piece like this, and you could throw lava in there if you wanted to go that route with it. But I want to do a little bit extra where the pieces are kind of broken up, like the bricks are kind of coming upwards and stuff. This piece broke off here, but that's not the end of the world. So what I did is I kind of marked over here where this foot's going to be with this little dot here, and these are the way the feet are. So I want it to be where it's cracking in the middle, but the feet are kind of like, the bricks are kind of breaking upwards around the feet, so it came down and you got some like power underneath the feet area. So what I'll be doing is we're going to do it like fast filming, but because it's just going back and forth. So I'll be kind of breaking some of these bricks using my Dremel tool, going in the garage, coming back, breaking them up this way. I might snap the bricks a little bit here and there. I might smash them. I might even take a brick out and kind of put it in later. It's kind of just going back and forth to trying to do it. But the main area is like these bricks are, you get the idea that these are all the white bricks. And then over in here it's all breaking up, and there's lava, and there's all kind of, you know, messing up around in here. So we want it to really be crazy looking. Alright, so you can see what I was going for, just having some fun smashing it all up. So these parts are emptied and it looks a little bit weird right now, only because what's going to happen is tomorrow what I can do is set this up a little bit better with Magic Sculpt or Aves and actually get a nice good key system and make sure she's lined up correctly, make sure she's not leaning forward or backwards too far, and get that going. It's easier to kind of build out your areas here with the freeform, let it cure, and then use like the Aves and Magic Sculpt on the part that's going to support the statue. So as you pretty much saw, all I was doing is you have like that layer of freeform air underneath the piece that kind of like slides around. So just by sitting here taking this wrench and just smacking it, you're breaking up the pieces like it's actually cracking and breaking like someone stomped on it. So that's kind of what I was going for. So what's going to happen tomorrow is once this cures up, because I've been leaving this in front of the heater because it seems like this freeform likes to heat up like and cures a little bit faster. What I'm going to do is I'm going to Dremel around this area here. Well, actually, I'll probably use my, not Dremel tool, but I'll use my Dremel with the sandpaper attachment and just kind of sand around this because I don't want to break up any of this stuff and have it fall or kind of kick up. And then what I'll do is I'll put some Magic Sculpt or Aves around the edging of this and get this as like just like an oval. We're just going to keep this as an oval. We're not going to do like the bevel look. It's just kind of evolving that way. And I think it should work out pretty cool. But when you look at it in front of it though, it's like it's all warped, it's bent, pieces are sticking up. And I think it's going to work out pretty cool, something a little bit different. And then as I'm thinking about it, once we're done and we start painting it, what I'm going to do is I'll probably do some like liquid epoxy with some like reds and yellows around in certain areas to make it look like lava and stuff is kind of cracking around in here and have a little bit of fun with it. Plus it'll help bond some of these pieces a little bit better too, just to be on the safe side, because I always kind of worry that sometimes these pieces might come a little loose, but we'll see what happens. So that's kind of where we're at. You know, let's. I'm gonna get a magnet underneath this foot right now because I just want to get a magnet in this foot. So this way, this is magnetized and this is pinned in, and we don't have to worry about it at the end of the custom project. And then I can add a magnet under here later on once we get it all lined up. Alright, so what I did this morning is I woke up, I did this sanding around the base, I got the oval shape back, and then what I did is I mixed up some more freeform air and I filled up around the whole area. So tomorrow what I need to do is just kind of sand down and get this like nice oval shape back as best as I can. So the base will be pretty much ready to go, and all we have to do is start setting her up in the base. So under her right foot, what I did yesterday is I drumbled out this area here and I put in a magnet. So now there's a magnet in this foot. I just got to sand this Aves down a little bit. And when we put her into the base, we'll have another magnet under this foot here, so she'll be a little bit more secure. Now this foot here, I didn't want to take out this rod because I'm not really sure how far the rod goes up. I think it only goes to about the top of the foot, but I don't want to be... you know, I don't want to start drummeling this out and find out that the rod is actually bent up the leg. I did put a magnet up here and it wasn't sticking to anything, so I think it's only a rod to here, but it's fine the way it is. So what I did is I have this square hollow brass rod, and this is going to be used to go into the base. So this way, when you put her in and out of the base, the rod will go into here. It's a little bit loose, but it's not going to be loose to the point where it's wobbling. Because the idea is if you put metal into resin or Aves and you keep putting it in and out, it's going to wear it out and you'll come up with that loose issue, and we don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'll drum out a hole bigger here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to set her up into the base like so, and then what we'll do is it'll be locked into place where this key will be locked in with Magic Sculpt. We'll have a foot over here with Magic Sculpt, and then we'll put a magnet down here after everything's said and done. So this way she's not turning, she's not wobbling, and she's nice and even and secured into the base. So that's the next step to do. And once we get through that, we start finishing. Alright, we're going to start finishing up the base. Last night I ran out of time, but I had some Magic Sculpt mixed up. So what I did is I set this up here and here. The metal rod is in there. Right now what I'm doing is I'm setting up a magnet with this foot over into this spot here. So this way this foot gets pegged in with the metal rod so it won't turn. And then this foot over here will have a magnetized, so this will be nice and secured. That's what we really want. I'm going to sand around the edges a little bit more, kind of clean it up. But I think what I'm going to do now is I made two markings here. I'm going to put the nameplate sort of not straight on, but a little bit of an angle, just so it's kind of like embedded into the base. I think that'll kind of like help the front of it a little bit more, a little bit different. And then after that, just keep cleaning it up, fine tuning, start setting up all the spots for the spikes, get everything set up, get everything clean, see if I need to do any more fine tuning, and then we can start getting ready for paint. Alright, so this would be a good chance to close out this video. Nothing really too exciting except just getting the base done. Just wanted to make sure everything was lined up, make sure she sits into the base pretty well. I like the way the nameplate now, we at least know who the character is. Also, what I need to do is tedious work on the base, which is tomorrow. Once this is cured, prime it all up. I'm going to have to use some putty work around here because you have soft freeform air with really hard polystone. So when you sand it down, you're sanding this faster than this. So I got to use my spackle tool and I got to do some putty work around the edge. Really simple, but just tedious stuff. So that's pretty much where we're at now with the base. I really like the way it's looking. You can pretty much see how, you know, we got a nice little bit of broken. So it kind of tells a story now. You got a throwback to the game, but you got an idea that she's got some power behind her, like she stomped on the ground. So it's a little bit of a fun type base. It's instead of just like a simple black base, which sometimes I like that on characters, but something like this is kind of good to do. A little bit of a story and a throwback. So, and plus the base a little bit thicker and bigger. It makes it feel like, you know, she got a little bit more weight to her and stuff. So that's where we're at now. And the next steps we'll have to be doing before we come back to the next video is just kind of priming the item up, doing some wet sanding, start getting everything cleaned up, making sure there's no residue anywhere, making sure, you know, nothing's caked up. Like, you know, I got some little bit of residue around here. I want to prime up this hand and get this cleaned up. I still haven't had a chance to really sand the tail after I did some putty work on it. So I just got a lot of little tedious stuff to do. When we come back with the next video, though, where it's going to be the last one before we do the paint series, is we're going to start prepping up all the little trinket stuff. So I got to make sure I have enough spikes. I might have to order more. I want to show you guys how I set up the spikes. We have to line them all up correctly, too, because we can't have spikes, you know, underneath here. We'll kind of go over that. I want to get the earring set up, too, and then do the hair strands around it. I will have to set up maybe this hand, too, a little bit better for the fire. We'll see. I also want to put the spikes nails in the back too. I was going to extend the fingernails, but I don't think I really need to. I think if I do, it may cause more issues, but we'll see if we can or not. But other than that, it's just more or less just getting it prepped up, getting all the trinkets done, and getting ready for paint. So when we come back, we'll get all those spikes and everything set up, and then we'll have it ready for paint series.